Hey, this is Jeff Stravinsky, and I am the HP networking specialist here in Wisconsin, and I work with state and local and educational accounts. And what we're going to do here is do a demonstration of HP's Intelligent Management Center. We're going to be utilizing version 7.1, and it also has some of our added modules on it. I'm going to do what I show many school districts, municipal, county, state, and higher ed customers here in the state all the time. So here we go. The screen share here in a second. All right, and all right, so what we have here is HP's Intelligent Management Center. We're going to log into it. It is a web-based system. HP sells it as a software application that you can run on a bare metal box, on a virtual machine, and as well on a you could run this up in the cloud, as such as HP's Helium Cloud. So what you see right here is our web-based interface that is multi-user. Everybody who logs into it can have their own security as to what they can see and what they can do, as well as on this home screen here, they have the ability to actually customize widgets that display different pieces of information about the network depending on what they would like to see. So in the case of me, when I log in, the first thing I see is my device view that shows me what devices we have on the network, how many switches, how many routers are actually being monitored, as well as if I go down here, I can see what the error messages are that are on any of those devices, any of the alarms, as well as a quick look at the topology, and over on the right over here, a quick look at the application topology. But certainly I could have any other number of widgets that are up there, looking at different things like CPU utilization, device unreachability. Might be things about wireless on the system, whatever makes sense for me. And of course, I can set up a different user that I might have auto log onto the system and display on a big screen in my NOC, so that folks can see what things are going on inside the network at just a glance. So, IMC is a tool set that is designed for network monitoring, as well as network management, as well as network services. And let me define that really quickly. So network monitoring is that ability to actually look at devices, see if they're up and operational, and collect statistics and display those statistics about those devices. Network management is actually the ability to change the configuration of that device or the entire network itself. And network services are services that you might provide to users or to the network. A good example of a network service would be a network authentication service. And so IMC can do that and quite a bit more. So let's go dive in. Let me bring up resources here. And what I'm going to see here is a real quick view of all the network resources that are there. So some of this is displayed based upon how I want it displayed, and some of it is displayed automatically. So what we'll do is we'll group together devices. Up at the top there, you can see custom views. I see one here for a site called Hartford, for example. So I can just put in there just all the devices that are at that location. Or the view snapshot there, which essentially is an auto-generated one based upon what kind of device it is: router, switches, server, security, wireless. The next one down is devices that are faulty. And then even ones that are actually categorized due to performance. Ones that have the greatest amount of CPU, ones that have the greatest amount of memory utilization, those that have the greatest response times, right, which is not a good thing, or unreachability, down actually today, or based upon inbound bandwidth or outbound bandwidth, right? So I can sort things different ways. So let's go jump in and take a look at probably something most of us will do the most often, which is to look at switches. You can say I have multiple switches that are inside my network. I get their alarm status over here to the left. I see what the device label, the system name of that device is. what kind of model it is, IP address, device category, and then of course over here I have operations that I can take on that device. So probably the first thing you noticed off the bat is that there's multiple vendors there. I have Cisco, I have 3Com, which of course HP purchased about 5 years ago. There's a couple of those. So these are some older devices. They're still 3Com devices. Some HP, and then even one from our Chinese subsidiary, H3C, is in here. So I can go jump into any of these devices. Let's kick off with just looking at a Cisco device. Probably showcases off how well this product works, and the fact that it is multi-vendor. So here we are in the device view, and the device view is going to be the exact same way with the exact same menu items as across different manufacturers. So no matter what I'm looking at, in this case I'm looking at a Cisco 3750 stack. I can see what its name is, I can see where the location is, I can see that it's been up for 155 days, the last time we pulled it. I can see that it's running IP-based software. In fact, if I go here to configuration management, I can actually see the exact image that it's actually running right now. But as you can see here as well, I have view into the network configs of this device, as you'd kind of expect. So one of the things that IMC does is that it automatically backs up the configs of your network devices. In this case, I have it set to do it weekly on Saturdays at 2 in the morning, right? And it just backed up here just a few days ago, as expected. Now, I could go in here and I could take a look at the configuration history and see what the history of this device has been. So it's been backed up several times. We got multiple backups right here. And so typically you might say, hey, you know what? Something's not working in the network. And as usual, we often wonder what changed on the network. So I can pick the current running config. I can go pick an older config from a considerable time ago. And what I can do here is hit the compare button. And what IMC will do is it'll actually pull up both configs side by side. It's going to highlight the unique lines here, blue, and then the red line. The red ones would be the change lines. So I can just walk down the config here as we go, and we see what those are. Or if we want to, we can just do a show differences only, right? So first things we see here are some comment lines, but essentially the next one is that we used a certificate originally that was saved right here versus one that was actually in a self-signed one here that was in the config. So potentially if there was an issue with the fact that we couldn't SSH into this box any longer, it could be because of the certificate. So if we determine that that was maybe potentially the issue, we could go highlight the config and we could go hit the restore button and we can actually restore back this config from an older time period to take out that changes that we had. Now, the other really cool thing we can do too is we can actually make a config a baseline. And that way we can always blow a switch back to its baseline automatically, or we can also compare it back to the baseline really easy. Or we can also have a baseline for a group of switches. And if we ever want to roll out the baseline config to a group of switches, because they're brand new switches, giving them the same config across a bunch of switches, it's super easy to do. Matter of fact, one of the really neat things we have with the tool is a section here called Compliance Center. And what that allows us to do is create compliance policies for how things are configured on the network. Now, here in the compliance policy section, we have a whole bunch of compliancy policies that are actually already configured. And what's really cool is that some of these are going to be some very typical things. Like in the case of this one, there actually is a compliance policy that we already pre-gave you called PCI. And so what it does is it actually goes and checks for multiple things that are create PCI compliance based on the type of device, right? Is it Cisco? Is it H3C? Is it HP? We'll go check those things, and if they are an issue, we'll actually alert you to that so you can actually go and fix that compliancy issue, right? And so one of the neat things we can do here is we can also define your own compliance policies. And they could be things all over the map. They could be access control lists that you want to check and see, QoS policies, whatever it might be, you can make sure that your switches are compliant to your policies and do it automatically all the time. So let's go back to resources. Let's go back to a switch. Pick another one here. And maybe in this case, we'll show an HP one this time. And the first thing you're going to notice is the exact same menu here, which is really kind of the beauty. So we homogenize the network, giving you the same way to monitor and to manage things across multiple switches. So over here to the right, there's toolbar type stuff. So I can do things like ping and trace route. I can, telnet, whatever it might be, SSH in the box. And then over here, there's even more menu items, right? The ability over here to go configure and configure multiple things on that device, including things like ACL configurations on the device itself. I could go in here if that device supports SDN. I could go in there and configure any of our OpenFlow settings from here. I could go down to protocols. So based upon, now this is a section that will kind of change. For instance, with this switch, it is a switch that routes. So we'll get RIP, BGP, OSPF information that'll pop up. So we can really get in here. We can configure everything. We never have to go and tell that into the switch. We never have to web into the switch. We don't have to worry about different web interfaces that are between different types of switches, either different manufacturers. And one thing we don't have to worry about is Java, right? That's one thing that we oftentimes have to deal with on pretty much in any older equipment. It's been there on Cisco stuff. It's been there on HP. This makes it nice and easy. This is based upon HTML5. So the neat thing is I can run this on multiple different devices. So let's do some really typical things here. So we can go into the interface list. So we can take a look at what interfaces are up versus down, what their interface descriptions are, be able to change system settings for any of those interfaces. I could also do the same thing on the switch for VLANs, right? Pretty typical thing to do. So if we go into VLAN over here on the right, I can go hit device VLAN, and what it's going to do is it's going to bring me up all the VLANs defined on this switch itself. So I can see here that there is a number of them. I have the ability to look at any of the information. I have the ability to make any changes I want to any of the VLANs, including obviously add and delete them. I can go take a look at VLAN interfaces that are on the switch. Go add and delete these as well. I can look and see what the access ports are on a per VLAN basis. And then finally, I can go take a look at the trunk ports and go add and modify those as well. In this particular one, there isn't any trunk ports. All right, so go back here to network resources again. We will pick a switch. And let's pick another one here. We'll pick this one now. So one of the things that might often come up when you're working on the network, say you're on another device, you're on your firewall, you're on a content management system, and you're looking through the logs and you see that some device is hitting an access control list, is maybe creating a security issue, and you want to track down where the device is. Maybe you have the MAC address, maybe you have the IP address. No problem, really easy. We can actually look and take a look at that. So when we go auto discover the network, we discover everything about it, layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. So I can look on here and I can see that on port 11, on VLAN 251, the learned address on that port is this address and this IP and this MAC. Now, in this case, I'm looking at a single switch right now. I could go up here and I can actually go query the entire network and look for a specific MAC, look for a specific IP, and figure out where it is across all of my devices. So it makes that really nice and simple. All right, so I mentioned VLANs before. So without showing you every feature in here, I'm just going to go through the ones that are my favorites, ones that would happen very often. So I can go into global VLAN management. And what this does is it allows me to look across my entire network. I can see all my VLANs across all my switches. Now these are VLANs that could be on one switch, they could be on 2 switches, they could be on all of my switches. But I can see all of those VLANs are out there. See, there's a whole smattering of them. You can even see, right here, I'm catching obviously some what would be legacy Cisco VLANs that are still stuck around, some legacy Cisco devices like the FIDI VLAN, the Token Ring VLAN, et cetera, et cetera. So those are there, and I have the ability, like I mentioned before, is I can add and delete VLANs here, and the tool set will actually make sure that it happens the right way in the right type of switches. So I can add a VLAN 19 and pick Cisco switches, HP switches, older 3COM, older H3C, and it's going to do it the same way across all of them. So it's a nice, easy way to do it without having to jump and tell that into multiple switches and do multiple commands with different ages of software. Makes life super simple. All right, so just really quickly, we can do pretty much the same things for ACLs. I won't get into this in this demo here, but essentially I can create ACL templates, and I can roll out a deployment of ACLs across multiple switches, depending on who the manufacturer. I can keep things very consistent, which is really important with security policies. I can do the same thing with QoS. I can create QoS policies, and I can deploy those across multiple devices. Super easy, super simple. Now, let's jump around. So obviously in most people's networks, they have a hypervisor in many cases. They're doing virtual servers. They might be using VMware's ESXi. They might be using Microsoft's Hyper-V. They might be using Linux KVM. So certainly it's an important part of the network, and understanding how those devices connect and if they're up and operational is super important. So what you see right here is 4 ESXi boxes that we have defined, and what we're doing is we're using credentials, and those credentials are defined in vCenter. We're using VMware's API to actually go talk to these servers. So if I go click on a ESXi host, one of the first things I'm going to see is all of the machines that are actually up and running. So we can see that there's 2 running in this box, one that's stopped, and then several that are suspended. I can go in here and I can take a look at migration reports and see how those virtual machines have migrated between physical machines. I can go and modify VM profiles. I can go in here and do VM operations like stop and start and suspend virtual machines that are actually up and running. I can go in here as well and see how many vSwitches are configured and how those are laid out. I can take a look at port groups that are defined. I can take a look at the network cards that are defined. It'll even obviously understand the storage that's defined. And in the next section here, I want to show you how we can understand the topology of the network. So let's actually bring that up next here. So I'm going to click on network topology. And I'm going to start here at the top level. And a lot of us are, sometimes are graphically orientated, and it helps for us to understand how things are running by graphically taking a look at them. So the first thing you see when you come up here is that we have a map of the network, and this map has been automatically created. And one of the things I can see is exactly how things are interconnected in this network. What I think is really kind of cool is that this is created and maintained at both layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. So let me give you a really good example. So here's a router and here is a switch. So I can actually go highlight that link right here. It's going to tell me the link name. It's going to tell me the link type. It's going to tell me who the left node is, what the name of that node is, which interface it is, gig E1/0, and then it's connected to a switch on the right, and it'll tell me the exact interface it's connected to, E1/0/14. I can see it's on an access VLAN, and it's VLAN 201, and I can see the link speed that it's at, 100 megabits per second. I can also go highlight devices here too. So I can see the name of this device, it's Z-VSR, I can see its IP address, I can see what vendor it is, how long it's been up and running, how long we pulled it, does it have any error messages right now? As you can see, this one doesn't, so it's green, versus we have some other ones here that have yellow, so it has some major alarms. And then if I want to as well, I can go right-click on any of these things. And this will give me a lot of the toolbar operations that I would get back on the other screen that we were on the device monitor screen. So I can look at this a lot of different ways. So if I want to, I can go right click on this and I can go change the device labels. So showing IP, I'm going to actually, maybe I want to go take a look at show sys names, right? So what are the sys names for all these devices? The other thing I might want to do is I might want to go in here and change the link labels, right? So I want to know, what is the interfaces that are being connected. So on these two, I can see that it's tunnel 1 and tunnel 1 that are connected to each other. So it allows me to take a look at the network in different ways. I can also go in here and I can go take a look at VLANs. So I will go right click here on VLANs. Now what I can do is I can see the VLANs that are here. Same list as we had up before, but now what's really cool is if I go highlight one, so like VLAN 10, it's on this switch, this switch, this switch, and it is on that trunk link. So kind of a broken VLAN. Maybe that's on purpose in type of this network. Maybe it's not. Obviously something in VLAN 10 here can't talk to something in VLAN 10 over here. But we go take a look at VLAN 20. We see it's those devices. We can see VLAN 49. It's on these two. VLAN 50, 68. So you see, as I walk through, different switches, different trunk links are being highlighted as we walk through. So it allows me to visually take a look at the network itself. I can do the same thing for looking at spanning tree. If I do run that horrible protocol, I can take a look at those things. So I really have a nice way that I can graphically look at the network. Now I mentioned that we also understand layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. So I showed you layer 1 and layer 2, but I could also go and say, hey, show me just devices that are a part of the 10.201.1.0 subnet, right? And here we go. Those are all right here. I can do the same thing, go looking at this one, and so on and so forth, right? So I can very quickly, very easily see all the devices and see what subnets they're on. Now, before I jumped into this, I was actually showing you virtual topology. Well, I show you virtual topology. I showed you the fact that we could actually talk to the hypervisor. So what we have here is a virtual topology. So we have the ability to actually bring up, we can see the ESXi hosts that we have connected here, right? These three that are right here. I can see storage. I've selected to have storage show up here as well. And then I can see the switch that they're interconnected to. And then the rest of the network is just a physical cloud. So I can see that this one is WFB-DC-core.3824. I can see that this one's labeled HP. This one's called HFD3024 controller. And then I can see which virtual machines they're connected to. And if I go highlight the link, it's going to actually tell me how those are connected. So I can see which interface on this side, which interface on that side. And as I look through these, I can see that exact thing. And it's actually giving me which virtual NIC that it's connecting to in the virtual machine. Of course, I can see the virtual machine itself. And if I decide to, I can actually open up that virtual machine and I can actually see what's connected there. So in the case of this one, we can see that it has one vSwitch. It has these virtual machines. It has one VM NIC. And like I said before, I can see how that's interconnected. And if there was multiple vSwitches and interconnections between any of the vSwitches, we would get to see that as well. Of course, we can very easily see which one of these machines is up and operational. So there's actually quite a few that are here in a stop state. But this one is actually up and running, and it's in a green state. See how much memory they're actually utilizing. And I can bring up toolbars to actually go take a look at additional information about these. So it really gives me a great view into the tool set. So far, everything I've been showing you is built into the base tool set, right? So there is a number of add-ons that we can actually add on to HP's IMC, and it allows us to take a look at different things. So one of the first ones I want to show you guys is network traffic analysis. And what network traffic analysis is, or aka NTA as we would call it, it allows us to collect either S-flow or net flow information on either switches or wireless access points or on routers if they support it. And so that gives us a statistical flow information. Layer 2, source destination. Layer 3, source destination IP, source destination TCP UDP, and which ports they're actually connected to. So I'm just watching 3 different points in my network, and I can see collectively how much traffic is coming in through those 3 points, who the top 10 applications are, and then a summary of those that are there right now. So let's go pick the one. It's one called HFD Front Door, which happens to be a link that connects to a firewall. So essentially it's watching all the traffic that's going in and out of a particular site. So what it's showing for the last hour is showing us 2 different things. So it's showing us the in here on the left, the out on the right, and it shows us 2 different graphs here. So the first is actually the real in that's been going on. So that'll be that green line. You can see that's jumping around just like any old normal network here. And then there's a red one, and that red one is the baseline. So that would be the median for this site, the statistical median average. And what it does, it shows us that normally over time that actually utilization has been, in most cases, a little bit higher than it is going on right now on the inside. Now on the out, we can actually see that we've actually been spiking up a little bit above the median in some cases. In some other cases, we haven't. So we get a good feel for how this network is operating. I can change this to whatever makes sense. I'm currently looking at the last hour, but maybe I want to look at, you know, the last 30 days. I might want to look at a custom time period. So as long as I want to keep traffic information, I can go in there and do that, you know, as much as I want. And then, of course, I can look back over specific times over the last day here and grab that information as well and graph it out. Now, a lot of cases, I might be really curious as to where this traffic is coming from. So I have the ability with S-flow and net flow to easily go out there and get application level information that we have going on. And what it'll do is here in the last hour show us what that's been, so we can actually see that we've had boot P, we've had SNMP traps, we've had net bias, we've had talk traffic, LDAP traffic, but you know, it looks like over the period of time that we're actually looking at, we've had an awful lot of HTTP traffic. That's been not surprisingly, you know, the most amount of traffic that we've gotten in. So in this case, I have selected 30 days up here, so you can see that 103 gigabytes have flowed in via HTTP. That's been the biggest amount of inflow, with HTTPS being the next one after that. But of course, just out being a lot less, 2.3 for HTTP, almost 10 gigabytes for traffic out. So we can see all the applications over the last month. We can see Microsoft SQL, we can see H323, gosh, Lotus Notes, that's an interesting one. You know, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that is going on over that period of time. And of course, we could select, you know, other time frames based upon what's going on here. So very simple, very easy to take a look at those applications. And we could also graph those out over time here as to how much bytes have flowed in versus how many bytes per second have flowed in. So we might be really curious as to who's been doing all that talking. So we can actually go in here and take a look at source information. So we can find out who our top talkers in and top talkers out have been. It'll showcase that to us right now. So we can look at those as percentages. We can also create charts based upon that. We can do destinations, and we can also take a look at sessions. So that would be pairs of devices talking to each other. And we can very quickly see who our top sessions are In this case, we can see that this one is the top one that is in versus that's the top one that's out. And then if we want to, we can actually click on details for these and dive into that traffic. So we can very easily look at how traffic is affecting the network, and if it is creating issues, maybe do some further analysis as to if that's the right traffic on the network, wrong traffic, or if we need to make some changes to the network to support that. So NTA is an add-on module. It's a module that you purchase. We license it based upon a device that you're monitoring, right? So we don't care if that device has 2 ports, 12 ports, 24 ports, 48 ports. It's just a single license to watch that device. And one of the neat things about S-Flow is that S-Flow in our products is implemented in the ASIC, which means that you can turn it on for multiple ports, and it does not affect performance of that switch, which we really like. All right, let's go and show you one of the other add-on modules that we have in terms of performance. So what we'll do is we are going to go to a tool set called Application Performance Monitor, or APM. And I'm going to start off by bringing that up with showcasing the application topology that we have. So what this tool set is really designed on doing is giving you the ability to take a look at applications that are running in your network and track and trend them. And with the whole idea of wondering, what is going on with your network in terms of those applications and what affects their performance. So as I like to think about this, that there's many things that make up an application, right? So I first think of it, the bottom layer, you have hardware, right? And in our modern world, that hardware is implemented in a hypervisor, right? So we have the ability to actually set up a VMware monitor, so we can actually track and trend different things about ESXi, and we have the ability to graph these things out, and we have the ability to set thresholds and be alerted about certain things, like in the case of this, ESXi running out of memory, right? We can also track the availability and get alerted if availability of ESXi itself is impacted, or any one of the other machines or variables in that box. So as we work up the stack, we go from the hardware layer, we go to the operating system layer. So I can go in here and right-click and do an application monitor on Windows, the operating system, right? So I can go dive into the OS. I can see that OS that's running here. I can see the availability of the OS itself. I can see CPU utilization. I can see that memory is running quite high in this particular box. I might be really curious as to physical versus virtual, and the ability to look back over time and see if it's been creeping up over time, or potentially go in here and actually take a look at and set thresholds based upon that memory being utilized here. So you can see it's been steadily over the last month here, has been building up and building up. So maybe there might be a memory hole in some product. We can ping the device, and we can keep track of its response time. You can see here we're tracking disk utilization. It could get thresholded based upon that. Could also do a history record here of that free space and check that out. We can see network interfaces running, processes running, and other events if we decide to collect events. Now, as we walk up the stack, we can also go and take a look at things like Microsoft SQL. So now we're actually looking at Microsoft SQL APIs. We see it's 2008 R2. We've checked the availability of SQL, see the memory utilizations. We can see buffer hit ratios, how much optimizer memory is there, lock space. We can look at cache hit ratios over time, and of course we can set thresholds on all this stuff. We can track the number of connections to that SQL server. So we really dive in and give you very deep statistics that we can trend over time and alert upon at that SQL level. So jumping back over here, what I want to do is I want to show you all the different application monitors that are out there. So these are ones that I have that are added. I'm just showing them to you in list form here. But I wanted to show you that as we work up the stack of the application, we went from the hardware to the operating system to the backend database server. But then there might be other parts of that application. I don't have any of those set up here for monitoring. But you could have application server. Well, there's a matter of fact, actually below that, you could have other database server monitors, right? It doesn't have to be Microsoft SQL, it could be MySQL, it could be Oracle, it could be DB2. You could have application servers, .NET, JBoss, Tomcat, Microsoft Link, WebSphere, Jetty, things like that. You could have specific web API services that we could be watching as well. So Apache, IIS, PHP, so we could be watching the web server itself. It could be a mail server that we want to monitor. Exchange, 2003, 2007, 2010, a generic POP3 or SMTP box. Could be a middleware or a portal like SharePoint, ActiveMQ, WebSphere. We could specifically go out there and talk to a SOAP service or a REST service to collect some information. I'll show you in a few seconds here. Our HTTP service monitor, which this is actually lumping this in with the web service monitor, is an example of IMC acting as a client. It's going out and requesting a URL and seeing if we can get it back. I can do the same thing with files. I could check to see if a file is available, check to see if a directory is available. I can go and check and see if FTP is available, right? TCP port is available. I could be checking DNS. I'll show you that here in a second as well. I can watch SAP. I even could do a storage device monitor, like the HP MSA P2000. So jumping back to this topology, you can see here that I actually have a few services here that I set up that are actually monitoring some Google services because they're fairly often used at a lot of companies. Google Drive, Google Gmail, Google DNS, right? So I can bring up the application monitor on Google DNS and I can check availability of the primary Google DNS server, which is 8.8.8.8. You can see that its response time has been pretty consistent, about 7 milliseconds. And what I've been doing is I've been acting like a DNS client. So I've been asking for a record type of www.google.com, right? But I could ask for other record types, right? I could ask it to resolve a host name for me. So I'm kind of checking. I could do this for multiple DNS servers. I could check my DNS server to see if it resolves for me, and I could connect to somebody else's and see if it resolves for me. So I have that ability to check that. I could be checking, in this case, Google Gmail, right? I want to check availability, what's been the response time, and the uptime of me being able to get to Google Gmail, right? Could do the same thing for Google Drive, and I could get alerted about any of these things. So if I'm getting complaints from students or from teachers saying that Google Drive is inaccessible, or if it's slow, I can go in here and look at the monitor. So the things that I monitor don't have to be on my prem. They can be out in the cloud as well. So lastly, I want to show you guys wireless management. So one of the really neat things we can do with this tool set is actually dive in and take a look at wireless. And this is an add-on module. It's called Wireless Services Manager, or WSM. And what WSM allows you to do is take a look at your wireless environment. It can work with multiple wireless controllers. We can work with our older MSM, our newer unified. We can talk to Cisco as well. And we'll be adding others over time. So you can see in this network, there's 3 access controllers. We can see that there is 11 total clients. We're graphing out the number of clients. It's been roughly around 10 most of the day here. We can see what kind of APs we have and how those break out. We can actually go pull how much AP bandwidth is over the last whatever time period we want to go take a look at. We can look at some other key statistics like reasons for association failures, wireless alarms, number of rogue APs we're currently detecting and rogue clients we're detecting, and the number of clients by radio type, A, B, G, N, AC, and such. So one of the neat things that we can do is, one second. All right, so one of the neat things we can actually do is go in there and look at each one of these things individually. So we'll start off with going into the access controller list. So we can see that there's 3 access controllers defined here. One of our newer Unified 830 controllers, one of our a little bit older Unified 5000 controllers, which is our first generation Unified, and then one of our MSM controllers here as well. So I can see the number of APs that are defined on each, how many of those APs are actually online, and how many actually clients are actually defined as well. I can take operations on each one of these, create, manage service policies, radio policies, manage the fit AP list, radius topologies. I can look across anything I want to and configure that from here as well. So let's start off, let's just go take a look at APs. In this case, I just clicked on the number of APs connected to just this controller. I can see the list of those APs here, their serial numbers, their IP addresses, what model they are, what VLANs they're actually running on, and how many total clients are connected to them. I can see in particular there is all the clients on this controller are all connected to one AP. You can see MAC address, I can see the types of those devices that are connected. I can go in there and see what kind of device it is. I can see this one's a Samsung, this one's an Apple, this one's a Mitsumi Electric, whatever the heck that is. I can see the signal strength. I can see what SSID, one called WLAN, what channels are actually connected on, and things just like that. Let me go back to resource management here, because typically if I did have a number of controllers in my network, I might want to look across all those controllers. So now we actually have the AP list up across all those controllers. We can see the radio status for each one of those. And of course, you can see things like we can actually take operations, like monitor them, bring up history information, locate to map. Going back to now, most APs that most people have and most of the time we sell have more than one radio. So we can actually bring up a list of all the radios, how they're all defined, what channels they're on, how those channels are set up, whether they're manually set up or whether they're set for auto, the ability to actually modify any of those radios right from here on across the board, across all of our devices. So really, in this case, it doesn't matter that I have 3 controllers and they're all running different operating systems. I manage them all the same way. That's the really beautiful thing about IMC's WSM. I can go bring up the client list, and again, I'm getting the client list across all of those. If I actually want to go dive into a client, like say I want to look at this particular client right here, I can go in there and get details about that client. This is the Samsung that's connected here. It's on the WLAN VLAN or the WLAN SSID. It's connected to that AP. It's associated successfully. We can see the mandatory transmission rate sets that it asked for. What auth mode do we actually use? If we're doing encryption or not. What the data rate is that we have here, and we can get everything we want about this device. And we can also take a look too at the client online history, right? Which I think this is really super important. This allows us to see when this client is actually connected to the network. Now, you see right here, I don't know the username of this device. So we're doing this all just using the wireless controller, not understanding the authentication method going on. So if someone comes up to us and they said, hey, what happened to the wireless network Tuesday at 2 p.m.? And you're like, nothing. And they're like, well, I couldn't get on. So you have the ability to go in here and take a look, see if they were connected, see if they were not connected, and give you some information to help you debug that potential problem, or put that user at ease that maybe it was their fault, or they're in an area where there really wasn't any good coverage, or you didn't see them connected at all. I can also go in here and I can take a look at the WLAN list. So this is actually kind of neat because it's going to show me here in a second the SSIDs that I'm running, how many APs are actually running on those SSIDs, and how many clients are on a per SSID basis. And then the ability to go modify, take a look at history information of those SSIDs. And again, this is across multiple controllers, giving me a lot of flexibility here. Now, one really neat thing about having your wireless management unified with your wired is the ability to actually go in here and take a look and say, hey, where are my APs connected? You know, where is AP 460-AM-002, right? It's actually on this controller, it's connected to this switch, and it's connected to this access interface, right? So one really cool thing I can also do right here, I can actually go turn this access point off. I can hit disable PoE, and it'll turn that access point off. Or I can re-enable it to turn it back on again. Now, an even cooler thing that we can actually do with the WSM module is we can go in here and create policies that can do that, things like turn off a bunch of switches automatically. So here's one called reduce power at night. So it can actually go and it can start and stop APs at a certain date and time, or it can do it on a reoccurring schedule. The other thing that I can also do is I can do a bunch of really cool things here, but the one that we've been hearing the most, especially from a lot of organizations, is not just start and stop an AP, but maybe modify radio power, right? Take down the radio power at a certain period of time, right? Or even cooler, start and stop an SSID. So maybe I have a public or a guest SSID, right? And I don't want it on in the evenings, right? So I can actually start and stop, start that, you know, say at 9 o'clock at night, or I'm sorry, stop it at 9 o'clock at night, let it run, let it be off for several hours, and then maybe an hour before people come in, actually go ahead and turn it on. So I can do these on a single instance, or I can do it on a reoccurring calendar entry, and that's just what I consider a lot of love. Makes your job as a network administrator a lot easy. So other things that WSM can do is it can look at interferences. It's dependent upon the APs that you have and the system you have. In the case of HP's wireless solution sets, in our current APs that we sell, they can actually look at the RF spectrum and they can alert us that there are interferences. So we're actually getting some of that right now. We're getting Bluetooth that's interfering on this access point right here, and it's affecting this channel. We also identifying a cordless phone. That's same AP, same channel. So in this case, this channel is getting bombarded by other things that will affect the performance. We can as well, based upon what you have, we can go in here and we can identify rogue access points and rogue clients that have attached to the system. So certainly if we have a policy that we do not want people doing that, maybe that policy is we just don't want people bringing in wireless access points because it's going to affect the wireless quality of your own system. You might not want that. Or even worse, say you have a public space, say you have people that are coming in and using your guest wireless. One of the last things you want to do is have someone popping up a free public Wi-Fi access point that really isn't an access point. It's really a data gatherer, right? And so what someone does is they take their Linux notebook, they turn it into an access point, people connect to it, they sit there man in the middle, sniffing passwords, sniffing credit card numbers, and you just, and if you're not watching rogue access points in your network, you might not be connecting that. So one of the neat things we can actually do here as well is, and we can do this with HP access points, is based upon your policies that you create, what we can do is we can actually do wireless intrusion prevention. So we can actually make that access point unusable to the clients around it, right? So what we'll do is we will send client disconnects to the clients that are connected to it, and we do that every 2 seconds. What they'll do is they'll get annoyed that they can't connect to their access point, and of course then they'll turn it off, right? That's kind of the whole idea. Now that obviously is a policy decision. If you don't want that to happen, you do not need to turn on that feature set. Maybe you just want to do the locate button here, and you want to go and locate that device and go have a conversation with that person. Or maybe you want to add them to the permit list. So say maybe the building you have is right in a residential area or a business office area. You can identify your neighbors that are on the permit list, and you don't attack them, and then people who bring access points into your building, you can add them to the attack list. A lot of different ways to cover it. So I could go on for ages showing you things like wireless network planning. I could show you the topology views of wireless. But really, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to stop. If you guys have any questions, you want to see different things about this, give me a holler. I would love to meet with you and show you more about HP IMC. It is one of the best unified management solutions out there that a network manager would like to have. So with that, we will sign off here, and I really appreciate you taking time to take a look at this. And if you wouldn't, if you'd like to hear more, like I said, reach out to me. I'm jeff.z@hp.com, Jeff Z at hp.com. I cover Wisconsin, and I cover it for municipal, county, state, K through 12, and higher ed here. And I'd be happy to come meet you and talk to you about the products that we have and showcase that stuff off and show you how it'd be very useful within your environment. So thanks very much. Bye-bye.